Welcome back. Today we will discuss Module 2 of the Shakti Sādhanā Foundational Teacher Training. This is where we start to explore Tantra. So the way that we will practice and share the practices of yoga, Tantric yoga, involves three distinct rivers of wisdom: yoga, Tantra, and Ayurveda. And there is a separate module that explores Ayurveda a little bit later in the training. Tantra is its own vast body of wisdom outside of yoga. Some yoga is tantric, some tantra overlaps with yoga, but not all. Okay. Tantra is its own thing. It is probably the most accurately associated with indigenous practices, methodologies of spirituality that incorporate the natural world, the solar system, and see everything as interconnected and thus applicable in our spiritual endeavors. Let me see if I can make that a little bit more understandable. Tantra is a worldview that suggests that everything that exists in the external world also exists within each human being. And everything that exists within each individual human being also exists in the external world. Thus, by working with the inner world, we have the power, the capacity to affect the outer world. And by working with the outer world, we can directly impact our experience of the inner world. Same, as above, so below, as without, so within. Our specific tantric tradition, because there are many tantric traditions, our specific tantric tradition is of a Shakta orientation, which means that we experience reality as feminine, with the name that we assign to reality being the Divine Mother. We, in our tradition, and again, our tradition is a Shakta tradition, but it's not the only Shakta tradition. It's specifically a tradition that aligns with the belief system of Sri Vidya. And Sri Vidya sees reality as innately sacred, entirely sacred, innately beautiful, joyful. Sorry, I just got a WhatsApp call. That's unusual. As innately beautiful, innately joyful, and meant to be enjoyed. So our worldview is that the world, reality, and everything in it is beautiful because it is all an expression of the most beautiful one. And that's inclusive of all of the suffering and all of the ugliness, all of the division in the world, that through our practices, we actually will get to a point where we develop a relationship with our mind that allows us to genuinely perceive the beauty in all things, the meaning, the purpose in all things, the interconnectivity of all things, and to enjoy life thoroughly and genuinely. So in Module 2, we start to take a closer look at that, but we do branch, or pan out, I should say, in order to take Tantra in with a broader perspective. We look at Tantra in a historical context, we look at Tantra in a cultural context, we look at the different sort of lineages of Tantra and overall sort of branches or schools of Tantra, paths of Tantra, and eventually kind of whittle it down to where this tradition fits. Then we also start to look at the specific methodology that we are utilizing as tantric yoga practitioners, where we really start to lean into traditional hatha yoga, and hatha yoga is, again, its own thing that essentially sees kind of human experience as a little bit dualistic, to bring that term back in from the previous conversation, where our experience of ourselves can basically be summed up as either influenced by lunar properties or solar properties. And in a very simplistic way, lunar properties would be more soft, more receptive, more cool, more relaxed. And then solar properties more active, proactive, more direct. I hesitate to use the words masculine and feminine because there's just so much undertone with those words. And I think we can get too hung up on them. So I'm not going to bring those into the conversation. But if you just think about properties of the moon comes out at night. It is more cooling. It is luminous, but not hot. There's a softness to the moon. There's a more cyclical quality to the way that we experience the moon. It is sort of ever-changing, malleable, adaptable, and that is a part of every human being's experience of themselves and of reality. And then the sun is hot. It is sharp. It is more active. We experience the sun more on a 24-hour cycle as opposed to like a 28-day cycle. So it has a different orientation and a different influence on our humanity and our experience of the world. Hatha, ha being sun and ta being moon, is the way in which we bring that, the collection of dualities, the collection of the pairs of opposites together, and we create that experience of yoga union. Hatha yoga traditionally utilizes asanas, the physical postures, pranayama, so the breathing techniques, also other pranayama techniques that are not just oriented to the breath, but are ways of harnessing and working directly and consciously with prana, bandha, mudra, things of that nature, in order to facilitate this internal experience of union where we bring ha and ta together to create balance, harmony, equanimity, and ultimately oneness. Okay, so how does Tantra then influence that? We start to work with a system of practice and teaching that I learned from one of my teachers, Rod Stryker, who really systematized this moon, sun, fire methodology. Moon, sun, fire has kind of taken on a life of its own. There are a lot of teachers out in the world that maybe claim credit for it. I beg to differ. I know where I learned it from, and I will give him the credit that is due. But long story short, it's a way of working with asana, pranayama, breath orientation that isn't exactly pranayama, intention, pacing, things of that nature, in order to influence first the lunar aspects of the self, which pertain a little bit more to the mind and the fluctuations of the mind. Then the solar aspects of the self, which pertain more to our experience of ourselves as energy bodies, as pranis. So we're working more directly with prana. And then the final stage of that moon, sun, fire methodology, the fire practices, which are oriented toward the more spiritually oriented endeavors of illumination and absorption. So again, we come back to that oneness, that experience of oneness with the divine. So in module 2, we explore what Tantra is, big picture. We explore our specific tantric tradition. We then explore the way in which we can bring in our understanding of Tantra to influence our practice of Hatha yoga, and to develop a very specific teaching methodology that you will then be able to share with your students. Okay, stay tuned. More coming soon. I will be back.